Well, it bit and scratched a bit, but it did work, so that's all back in place. And now I can align my tab there, bit of that bit of dirt. With my scratch marks that I've got on there. And I can see that it still leaves a slight amount of adjustment because these slots, these screw holes here are slotted, meaning that bracket could move slightly relative to the focus scale ring. There's our focus. And that's much smoother than it was. That's good. I'm pleased with that. And as I said before, you move the focus scale ring right past the limit, past the infinity position, and it lifts this tab here and this tab here, which unlatches the bellows. And allows you to fold the front of the camera. Well, that looks good. Now, just check, I've managed to put too many greasy marks back on this. Now I've got to get my shutter back in the focus helical. And I'll have to pick the right spot for that, of course. But I do have a reference because I'd made special note of where the shutter came when it was closed right down. And I think what was I'd taken note of? Some component here. I think it was this piece and that piece. I'll just check on my earlier photos and make sure I've got that in the correct position. But it was something like that. That looks right. Right, okay, well I'll check my dimensions there, make sure I've got that helical in the right position. Once I'm happy with the position of that, I'll put some lubricant, some helical grease on that helical and then put it back in the correct spot. Right, I'm ready to lubricate this helical now. I've made note of where things need to be so I can put things back. Oh, look, there's a little screw sitting loose in that grease. Something from a previous repair that I'd lost. Right, so this is in the correct position now. Where does it lift out? It lifts out with the Kodak at around the 10 o'clock position. Okay. So I'll put some molybdenum helical grease in about half a dozen spots around the circumference. You don't need to clog the helical completely with grease. That'll do. And I said that the Kodak word was around there when it lifted out. Let's see if we can get it to go back in and then get the timing of it correct. And that was it. That was the correct timing. Well, that was good. That was easy. Right. So I'll pop the screw back in place. I'd taken note of where it needed to be, but taking note of where it needed to be and landing it in the right spot are two entirely different things. Okay, get this post in. This screw is the guide post which locates the shutter assembly on the mount so it doesn't rotate. That's better, that's in position. Do that up. And that focus is nice and smooth now. I'm quite happy with the action of that. So I've got to check the focus and make sure I haven't disturbed anything, or in other words make sure it was correct before I started, because I put things back where they came from. But that shouldn't be a difficult process to achieve, and I won't need to remove the shutter to get to that. I'll simply need to slacken off these two screws here and shift that plate, move the focus ring relative to the helical and put that plate back on. So I'll just check the focus at the film plane and make sure that that's correct. And then after that I've got to think about cleaning the rangefinder. Clean the front component first. That's been bonded and placed down here with glue, so someone was certainly keen to see that that stay in position, so I won't be disturbing the alignment of that component. I'll just be cleaning it. I think it's a simple glass lens in here, nothing complicated and not too dirty. But first I need to check my focus at the film plane, and assuming that that's good, then I can move on to the rangefinder. Well, that went very smoothly indeed. I checked the focus, it's absolutely spot on. So the focus is good. Next step, the rangefinder. So I need to clean it. Need to clean the front lens group there, which is very easy to get to. Cotton bud surfaces, no problem at all. And then dismantle the rangefinder at the back here and get to that. So I better find some glass cleaner. Of course this camera's got the interesting rangefinder. The viewfinder has got an insect in there. Some tiny insect. Looks like a microscope slide. Which of course has got to come out. No one wants a microscope slide in their camera. And I'll just check and see what the alignment's like now before I disturb anything. Let's check that. It's pretty close. It's not going to need much adjustment at all, I would say. But let's find out about this biological microscope slide specimen. 3 screws at the back here. There are 3 glass lenses here, here and here, so I need to clean the inside surfaces of all those lenses and the outside surfaces. And as usual I clean the outside surfaces first because it's easier to see them. Because it's easier to see them, it's easier to judge that you've got them clean. And when you've got the outside surface clean, it's much easier to judge that you've got the inside surface clean when you go to clean that. The inside surfaces are usually awkward to get at, awkward to see. This is not a particularly bad example by any means. And I don't really need to remove these pieces of glass or lenses from the shell in order to clean them. The access is good. Let's see, looking from the front, see what sort of an effect I've had on that. I don't like the outside edge of that really, that's a little bit grimy. Right to the corners. That looks good. So that piece of glass is good. But I do need to take note of this. Put those 3 screws to one side, put that camera body to one side. And here we have the viewfinder assembly. The viewfinder window is the one in the middle, you just look straight through that. Our rangefinder arrangement is here. We have a prism at this end. Two prisms arranged at this end. And somewhere we have our little biological specimen of an insect. I can see something on the surface. I don't know that that would be it. I think I can get to my 3 prism surfaces at this end fairly easily. I'm less enthusiastic about the arrangement at this end because we have a prism, a lens here. I do not want to disturb those components if I can at all avoid it, because the chances of getting everything lined up again correctly are not especially good. I'm seeing if the eyepiece removes completely. It doesn't. There's a notch in here and here. I suspect that this has been staked over to stop this from being backed out. Yeah, it's got 4 notches equidistant around there. I can see here from the screw marks, the marks in the screws, that someone has had this apart, or at least been playing with it in terms of trying to adjust it. I would say that's been apart for cleaning. Possibly here too. Right, I'll bring you back when I've had some success, or at least some partial success, or at least know which direction I'm moving in. Alright, I'm going in. I've decided that I am going to have to dismantle the prism at this end. I'm just putting a spot of acetone on that lacquer, and likewise around that screw, just to soften that lacquer up so I can remove those screws. The surfaces I can get to easily do not include that little insect. Take that screw out. This prism came off. And this is just too tiny for you to see anything. I'll see if I can get you focused in as close as that. Hang on a minute. That is as close as I can get you. There's a tiny thing here and a tiny thing here. Now, even with my best glasses on here, I can't see exactly what they are. but they are pretty transparent. I am fairly confident that they are the little biological specimens. The size of those things. The larger of the two would be about 1 millimetre long. The smaller of the two, perhaps half that distance. They are translucent and exceptionally tiny. Some sort of mite, no doubt. I don't really know, I've got no idea what they are. I'll clean those surfaces, put this back together, and hopefully they're gone. And hopefully that's what they were, and I don't have to dig any deeper. Well, I'm pleased to say that went remarkably smoothly. So now I'm just going to put a drop of lacquer on the 2 screws that I had disturbed to stop them coming loose. And I'll pop this assembly back on the camera and see what I need to do in terms of adjustment, if anything. Just close the front of the camera. Blow out any dust. There's 3 screws that hold this assembly in place. If I'm exceptionally lucky, the only adjustment I'll need to make will be to the infinity focus position. I'm hoping that I don't need to make any adjustment to the vertical alignment of the 2 images. But I'll know in a minute when I check this out the window. Well, that went remarkably smoothly. The rangefinder appears to be accurate. I don't need to make any adjustment to it. I'm not used to things going remarkably smoothly. In this case they did. So I'm going to give the camera one last look over. Give it a wipe to get rid of all my greasy fingerprints. This shiny black finish certainly shows up fingerprints. And assuming I see nothing else needing attention, I think that this nice Bantam Special camera can go back to its owner. I'm sure they'll be pleased to see it. They haven't seen it for months and months and months because of all the joys of the current situation, of which I'm sure you're fully aware. Well, that's it. That camera can go home. So thanks for watching. One Bantam Special presented its challenges. Nothing we couldn't overcome today, fortunately. And away it goes. Thanks for watching.